Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Continuing now with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, what we see is that the 9 brothers pay a visit to Egypt again. But this time they have experienced extreme poverty and they only have a few poor quality goods to exchange for food. So as evident in Surah Yusuf verse 88, they ask Yusuf to be charitable and to give them sadaqah. So surprisingly, the boys who had once considered themselves a strong and powerful group that can never be challenged and looked down upon Yusuf, unable to understand why their father gave him any attention at all, had now been humbled so much that they were asking for charity. This was a perfect moment for Yusuf alayhi salam to reveal his identity. Unlike the eldest, these 9 brothers had not done tawbah yet, even after reliving their past and witnessing how much grief they caused their father a second time with Benjamin. They had so much ego and pride that they refused to question the decisions they made in the past, they refused to see themselves as sinners, and they refused to believe that Allah might be upset with them. But when they were humbled in front of the same man who they always looked down upon, that is when they realized that true honor and respect only lies in the hands of Allah, as further explained in Surah Yusuf in verse 90. Allah favors those who are patient, steadfast, and who work hard to do good deeds, and that is why Allah favored Yusuf alayhi salam over and above his other 10 brothers. So at that moment, those brothers realized how small and insignificant they appeared in front of Yusuf, asking him for charity. Only then did they truly repent by admitting that Allah has certainly preferred Yusuf alayhi salam over them and that they truly are sinners. Now interestingly, the shock of seeing Yusuf holding such a prestigious position was so much for the brothers that they didn't even ask him directly for forgiveness. They were still in awe of how much Allah has preferred Yusuf over them. Yet it was the kind heart of the Prophet who immediately forgave them and assured them that inshallah Allah will forgive them as well. In fact, Yusuf alayhi salam was so generous that he informed them that there will be no blame on them at all. Now this is very important to understand. Forgiving someone for an evil act implies you cannot continuously remind them of what they have done. Even though you might feel pain every time you recall the incident, you cannot speak of it to insult them in any manner. That is why forgiveness carries such a massive reward. It's very difficult to not remind the evildoer of what he's done. Whether Allah has truly forgiven the evildoer depends on the extent to which that person has done tawbah, which of course is strictly between him and Allah, but as far as the forgiver is concerned, he cannot repeatedly mention the evil deed. So coming back to the story, Yusuf alayhi salam then gives his shirt to his brothers to cast over the face of their father so that his eyesight can be returned. Therefore, as the boys are now coming back to Palestine and the caravan is coming closer, Yaqub alayhi salam claims to be able to smell Yusuf even though he has not lost his mind. And the reaction of those nearby indicate that everyone around him in the town believed that he was mistaken in the same way that they believed he was mistaken all his life trying to find Yusuf. So inevitably, when the good news comes and Yaqub alayhi salam regains his sight, his first reaction reveals the immense tawakkul, confidence he had in Allah. Because he says, "Did I not tell you that I know from Allah that which you don't know?" In other words, he knew that Yusuf alayhi salam had that dream when he was a child for a reason. He knew that Allah was actually conveying a message to him, and he knew for certain that inevitably this day would come. That is the essence of tawakkul, having this firm conviction that Allah's relief will come. You might not know which form it will come in or when it will come, but you must have this yaqeen that it will come. Now at this stage, the boys ask their fathers for forgiveness, admitting that they have been liars and sinners, and Yaqub's response reveals that unlike Yusuf, who immediately forgave, a father who had been lied to for decades, despite everything he had done for his children, needed time to forgive. So when he is asked for forgiveness, Yaqub alayhi salam replies, "Soon I will ask forgiveness for you from my Lord." In fact, it is also possible that Yaqub alayhi salam needed time to forgive because he first wanted to see the state of Yusuf. He understood that the ultimate crime was actually committed against Yusuf, not him. So being a just and fair father, he wanted to first see the state of Yusuf and whether or not Yusuf was ready to forgive before he decided if he was going to forgive his sons. And of course, Allah knows best. So yet again, this explains the flexibility in Islam. At times, forgiving is easy for us, and at times, the people who have hurt us repeatedly over years makes forgiveness hard. Allah understands both situations, and Allah places no immediate pressure on His slave. If the slave can forgive, then that is great. If the slave needs time, then that is also acceptable. And if the evildoers never ask for forgiveness and continue their evil practices, then if the slave never wants to forgive, that is also acceptable. Inevitably, what you see in the story now is that the entire family is reunited in Egypt, and they all prostrate to Yusuf as a sign of respect. This is not only the fulfillment of the dream that Yusuf a.s. saw when he was a child, but it is also an indication that perhaps Yusuf was a Rasul. Having everyone prostrate to him, including his father who himself was a Nabi, could indicate that Yusuf is now the new leader that has to be followed. And of course, this is crucial if a Rasul arrives during the time of a Nabi or another Rasul, based on the covenant signed by all the prophets in the heavens before they came down to the earth. This is mentioned in Surah Al-Imran, verse 81. A covenant was taken by all of the prophets that if, while any prophet is alive, there comes a Rasul, then that prophet must render all his support to that Rasul immediately. And this is important because the arrival of a Rasul indicates a possible change in the Sharia or the Sunnah as compared to the previous Rasul. And that's why the new Rasul has to be followed by all. So perhaps the fact that everyone, including a Nabi, is prostrating to Yusuf a.s. could be a sign to indicate that Yusuf was indeed a Rasul who is now the new leader and has to be followed. Allah knows best. Most importantly, after the prostration has taken place, Yusuf a.s. is having a one-to-one conversation with his father. And the things that he says are just remarkable, because he seems to only be talking about how generous and kind Allah has been to him. And this is a moment of reflection for all of us. At no point does Yusuf a.s. complain of his struggles, isolation, betrayal. On the contrary, he actually sees the silver lining in every test of his, and his mindset is such that he only focuses on the moments of relief, such as coming out of jail, instead of focusing on how many years he was in jail. He's thanking Allah for being able to bring his family out of the Bedouin life of Palestine, instead of focusing on the years of separation that he faced from his family. He's thanking Allah for putting love and forgiveness between him and his brothers, instead of focusing on the betrayal of his brothers. So with genuine love and sincerity, he is thanking Allah for giving him sovereignty, teaching him the interpretation of dreams, protecting him, holding his hand throughout all of his tests. And this is the attitude of the true believer. The relief provided by Allah overshadows all the past pain and trials. And at the end, there is nothing but genuine shukr and pure love for the divine. Assalamu alaikum.